I've talked before about how we're managed so easily by those who understand the sciences. And we've been trained already, mind you. It's almost like pre-training, conditioned to be upgraded all the time via the media and via ads and entertainment. They put out the ideas into your mind, and everything becomes normal. Absurd things eventually become normal because you've heard or you've seen it in fiction, or even comedies is a great way of getting things across. And it's familiar to you. So if it's familiar to you, go along with it. And you watch the progression of, or what we're told is the progression of microchipping technology and how wonderful it's becoming and all that kind of stuff. In actuality, they had this about 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. What you do with animals or people is you familiarize them little by little until they adapt. Remember what Skinner said. He said if you want to alter the behavior of people, you simply introduce things into their environment that were not there before, and people adapt to them. As they've adapted to all the cameras, as they've adapted to the cops in the subways and getting patted down, as they adapt to all the things in the airports. And it's the same thing with their technology. We will sell our souls for what we think is convenience. Whereas not getting up to turn a light switch down or off or whatever, and clapping your hands, to having a chip in you, like Warburg, or whatever his name is, Warrington, that advocates we all get chipped so that we can turn the lights off. Oh wow, or open doors before we arrive at them and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't talk about the servos you need and all the money to make these things happen. But anyway, here's an article here to do with, from Popular Science, of course, a great mouthpiece of the big boys. And it's from the 20th of November, 2009. It says here, Intel wants brain implants in its customers' heads by 2020. Well, believe you me, it's already here. In certain areas, they've used it with paraplegics a few years ago. DARPA, there was wonderful guys who want to help. The real job is actually to help quadriplegics. They really feel sorry for them. Well, that's who they were using as experiments, of course. And they found they could have these subjects send emails all by thinking about them with the chips implanted in their brains. Well, so this stuff is getting you ready for it, but it's actually going to be a lot quicker than it's telling you. I don't want to scare you too much. And it says here, if the idea of turning consumers into true cyborgs sound creepy, don't tell Intel researchers. Intel's Pittsburgh lab aims to develop brain implants that can control all sorts of gadgets directly via brainwaves by 2020. The scientists anticipate the consumers will adapt quickly. Well, they will too. Yeah, they've adapted to everything else given to the idea, and indeed crave the freedom of not requiring a keyboard, mouse, or remote control for surfing the web or changing channels. They also predict that people will tire of multi-touch devices such as their precious iPhones, Android smartphones, and even Microsoft's wacky Surface Table. Turning brainwaves into real-world tech action still requires some heavy decoding of brain activity. The Intel team has already made use of MRI brain scans to match brain patterns with similar thoughts across many test subjects. And as is plenty of other researchers also have tinkered with this idea. Toyota recently demoed a wheelchair controlled with brainwaves, and University of Utah researchers have created a wireless brain transmitter that allows monkeys to control robotic arms. They were doing that for the military even long before that, using monkeys as well as test subjects. There are still more implications to creating a seamless brain interface. Besides having more cyborgs running around, if scientists can translate them into specific actions, there's no reason why they could not create a virtual world with a full spectrum of activity tied to those brain waves. That's right, we're seeing matrix creep. And as I said years ago, they could put you on a farm shoveling dung out of the barn, and meanwhile in your head you're living a lovely dream that you're Moonraker, you're James Bond, you're out somewhere else doing amazing things. And you'd be quite happy with that. Quite happy indeed. Now, and people will rush for it. Remember what Rockefeller said, the people will come to them with perfect docility. Why do you think they make these statements at their big world meetings? They understand the average person absolutely 100%. And the peer pressure that goes along with it too. And the fact that people are getting trained. See, the more they yap on their cell phones and texting each other and they can't walk around and think for themselves, they cannot live with themselves in silence. It becomes creepy for them to have a thought run through their head that was actually theirs. They're used to noise and either music banging away there or someone else's voice. And wherever they are, this thing's stuck in their ear, they just can't do without it. And now it terrifies them to be literally on their own for 5 minutes. So yeah, they will go for the brain chip. This article here is from Wired. Homeland Security wants cell phones to sniff for bioagents. This is for you, actually, you see. And it's from April the 12th. Your cell phone can already tell you where to find the nearest Starbucks or the most convenient subway station. That means you don't need your brain at all, you see, as well as getting the chip. But it might soon be smart enough to alert you to a toxic threat during your morning commute or coffee break, thanks to a new plan from the Department of Homeland Security. I love the way they present these little things to the public. The last time we heard about cell phones and terrorism, it was an appeal from the NYPD to shut off cell communication during an attack. Now, Homeland Security's Science and Technology Directorate want to use cell phones to detect the very threats that might be coordinated using wireless chit-chat. Their new program called Cell All would embed inexpensive chemical-sniffing microchips into cellular telephones. If a dangerous level of air-based toxin is detected, the phone would issue a warning ring or vibration to alert the owner. And listen to this, folks. This is for your phones coming up. And send a message to a centralized military monitoring station. Can you imagine coming out with the dry cleaner and you drape your thing over your arm? And then you go and phone someone, and this thing's alerting the military. Next thing, you're carried off or shot by a SWAT team. It picked up the chemicals off the clothing. A whole bunch of things are going to happen here. You can just tell it. But it won't stop the schmucks from buying it. Can't do without it, It says, and since the vast majority of Americans carry cell phones wherever they go, the program would use aggregated reports of toxin detection within a small area. Of hundreds of cell phones in one location start flooding the alert system, the military knows they've got a serious threat to contend with. That's a bunch of guys, in a little place, using matches to light cigarettes. The sulfur off the matches, psh, ready. They'll get machine gunned, they'll be riddled to death before they know it. Do you think that smoking was such a threat to anybody? You soon will. Anyway, it says they've got a serious threat to contend with. Detection, transmission, and analysis would take around 60 seconds, according to a press release from the Directorate. I love what we've got now. We've got directorates. The Directorate. Obey. Given that terrorist attacks are usually launched in highly populated areas, subways, malls, office buildings, the idea of crowdsourcing the detection of toxic terror threats makes a lot of sense, and using a built-in cell phone application would give the military the ability to detect threats in every corner of the country. So they're watching you, they're listening to you because they can activate them and listen even when it's off. Now they can sniff you. Oh, dear. That was in the movie Brazil, by the way. Everything that happens was in that comedy, because those guys knew what was coming up. They knew. They all went to Oxford University and talked to the best brains. They knew what was all planned for the future. And they go into the Department of Information Retrieval, and this robot comes up with these sniffers, and they photograph you from all angles and sniff you. Privacy is as important as technology, Stephen Dennis says. After all, for Cell All to succeed, people must be comfortable enough to turn it on in the first place. Don't worry about it, son. They'll do it. They'll do it, son. That's good news for privacy zealots and conspiracy theorists, some of those crazy, wacky people, but bad news for the program's potential effectiveness, given that crowdsourced intelligence depends on knowing that there's a crowd to be sourced in the first place. The directory is already in research and development talks with Apple, IG, Qualcomm, and Samsung, and anticipate having 40 different cell phone prototypes within a year, and that'll be the norm. Yep, and you'll buy your chains. Just buy them. Yep. I think all too, we'll get used to the cops raiding us all the time. Maybe that's part of the whole idea. Each time it's a little, you've been using some paint cleaner or something like that. You're using some ammonia to get some gum or goo off something, and whatever it happens to be, and in they come, and it becomes a common occurrence, you know. And they'll have a nickname term for it. So when you see your neighbours getting raided, and they'll say it was a mal raid or something like that, you know, and we'll get used to it.